Hi New Hope Church. I trust this message finds you well and safe. At this time of the year, usually we would encourage the whole church to come together in a very practical way and contribute toward a free will offering that goes to empowering our facilities here in Toowoomba and also at Warwick and Crow's Nest. And don't forget, we have 5 acres of land and a mandate to replant up at Highfields. And so this is all about the future, it's all about legacy, and we call it our Heart for the House offering. But of course, in this season, we find ourselves in an unusual circumstance. And to tell you the truth, initially I felt like maybe it's not appropriate, it's not the right time to talk about, a special offering during the whole COVID season. So I took this to the board recently and we discussed it. And interestingly, around the table, there were plenty of stories of businesses that are doing well. As a matter of fact, we know of people whose businesses are booming right now. For some people, they've been very affected personally with employment situations. But for many people, aside from social isolation, nothing has really changed. And so the general consensus at the board was, why would we rob people from the opportunity to be generous towards God, especially when this season always brings forth great testimonies of people who trusted God and had breakthrough personally in their finances. And so for that reason, we decided that we would proceed with our Heart for the House giving this year. Certainly our vision for growth hasn't changed. Currently at Warwick, we're receiving tenders, receiving our quotes on their new facility. Crow's Nest has a building that needs to be updated and maintained. And right here at Peace Street in Toowoomba, we are far from finished our development. And we certainly want to empower the future generations by developing our facilities. So with all that in mind, Pastor Sue and I would like to invite you to prayerfully consider joining us as we give the first pay packet of the new financial year into our Heart for the House offering. You may want to give more than that, or you may simply give a portion of that. But what I would like to remind us is a word that I brought at the beginning of this season concerning our finances. It's a word of wisdom from the Apostle Paul, and he writes to the Corinthians that if you have a mind to give, then it's according to what you have, not according to what you don't have. I think there's real wisdom in that for Paul. So, potentially you have been affected by this season and you do need to actually take that into consideration. We are going to receive our giving over several weeks, and this always sort of makes it more doable for our families. And we do recognise that this is a step of faith beyond our regular practice of honouring God with our tithe. It represents a first fruit of the new financial year. In that way, it's a reflection of the practice that God asked of Israel when they entered the promised land and they grew their crops. They gave of first fruits as a way of establishing their permanent presence in the land. Our regular weekly tithes and offerings are already well budgeted for and certainly give us the capacity to have a significant presence in our respective communities. But this over and above giving has been a way that we've been able to move forward with facilities and with outreach programs and expand our influence. A tough season doesn't negate the need to sow in faith. And I'd like to look at a story from 1 Kings chapter 7. It's the story of Elijah and the widow from Zarephath. And Elijah approaches this woman as she's picking up sticks in the middle of a famine, and he asks her to feed him. This is her reply. So she said, "As the Lord your God lives, I do not have bread, only a handful of flour in a bin, and a little oil in a jar. And see, I am gathering a couple of sticks that I may go in and prepare it for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die." And so you see her situation is absolutely desperate. But again, Elijah said to her, "Do not fear, go and do as you have said, but make me a small cake from it first, and bring it to me, and afterward make some for yourself and your son. For thus says the Lord God of Israel, the bin of flour shall not be used up, nor shall the jar of oil run dry, until the day the Lord sends rain on the earth." And we know, as you continue to read the story, that's exactly what happened. What I note in this is that the request seems so unreasonable, right from the word go. Here is this widow on her last meal for her and her son, fully expecting to perish. And Elijah says, how about putting me first? And of course, in that sense, she was to put God first by providing for him. You know, initially it would seem like she was provision for Elijah, but the way it turns out, Elijah is provision for her, and she gets safely through the famine. I love this whole concept because she had that provision. God obviously saw faith in her heart, sent the prophet to her, but first she had to surrender and exercise faith, and then the provision came. So I want to encourage all of us, maybe even some of us who are facing turbulent times. Use wisdom for sure, but don't write off the ability for God to use your steps of faith to bring provision your way. So between the 3rd week of June and the middle of July, we'll be receiving a miracle offering that goes towards our facilities in all locations. Please mark your giving. When you fill in the little description box online, please mark it Heart for the House or facilities, or something that will let us know what this is particularly for. And I want to invite you, with Sue and I, let's be prayerful about how we might be able to contribute financially towards the expansion of New Hope Church. I do encourage you, move in wisdom, move in faith. God bless you. Stay safe.